Welcome to the special video series Future Focus brought to you by ICICI Lombard. In this very first episode, we have with us Girish Nayak, Chief of Service, Technology and Operations at ICICI Lombard. He's going to share with us his expert views on how to run a smooth ship during the pandemic and also why digital services are important during these trying times. Welcome to the show, Girish.
Thank you, Vishal.
Can you please tell us how ICICI Lombard is using technology to serve customers?
This whole scenario due to the pandemic lockdown is quite unique. I don't think any organization, in spite of very well-written BCP policies and what have you, ever wrote a scenario where all the premises would be available, but human agents would not be able to access any premise. So typically BCP scenarios look at a situation where one premises is out of reach or destroyed, or a data center is out of commission, or whole lot of situations where one doesn't kind of expect that everything is remote. And but what also what has helped is in having the BCPs, though it did not envisage the scenario, it did envisage a set of protocols we followed when a crisis is noticed, and that is what helped us through in very swiftly responding to the whole scenario as it panned out. We immediately, when we had the first sense of something like this coming, we immediately sent almost 50% of our staff to work from home across the country. We also fortunately were able to order some additional laptops and got them delivered just before and as the countrywide lockdown hit. So a few more of the staff who needed to be enabled to work from home could be given the laptops. In a sense, we could have a good proportion of our staff to be enabled to directly work from home with laptops and using either VPN or internet-facing applications, as the case may be, with the appropriate security functionality involved to work from home. Regarding our partners, and we have a huge agent network and other distribution channel. So there we have been over the period of time digitizing a whole lot of functionality out there. And that stood us in good stead at this point in time, where most of our operations with our agents, though we are not able to physically move any paper, we are able to do that digitally. So whether it is through the agent portal that we have given them, or through a mobile app, or through an email bot that is used, especially in our SME business. So there are various tools that agents have at their fingertips to kind of communicate with us digitally, to process information digitally, to issue policies digitally. So that has helped us in good stead to manage this whole scenario in the pandemic without having to actually access our offices. And finally, the customers always have our website if they want to directly access and purchase policies on the website or through the mobile app. And that has been working constantly through this period. And finally, the call center, we have an in-house call center, and again, we were able to get a significant amount of call center capacity also working from home right from day one. So that has helped service because one important part of the entire operation is the claim servicing. And especially at a time like this, when people require access for health claims, that we had to keep that up and running constant. So our health claim processing, which is our, because we have in-house TPA as well, which processes the health claims, as well as the call center, we were able to get functioning on day one of the lockdown from home, so that that process also went on uninterrupted. So we've been kind of, because of our huge investment in digitization and automation, we have been able to get all constants of it, whether it is the employees, the partner network, or the customers. kind of move seamlessly to this lockdown scenario that we have been under for the last month or so.
Okay, and talk to us about some of your CRM initiatives. What measures have you taken to improve the experience? You spoke about digital, where apps, people use apps. There must be a certain spike at this point of time. Talk about your experience in terms of, how much of these customers are coming online today and why.
Yeah, like I said, see, there's a certain section of the customers who comes online. They have been coming online. That has increased, but really, where our greater this has been is trying to get our agency network completely. And we have different solutions for different uh, kinds of agents. They're agents who primarily do the motor business. There, it's largely through a portal which we call iPartner, where they have all the functionality that they require, including if they need to have some special approvals. Everything is kind of put in that one portal. That's one place where they go and they can issue policies immediately to the customer. They can, and in this situation where they're not able to interact with their customer directly, they also have to work from their home. They are able to talk to the customer on phone, fill in the policy, to send a payment link to the customer so the customer can make the payment on his or her device, and the policy gets issued and sent to the customer. Same is the case for health business. There, the agents are more comfortable because of the different nature of that. They are more comfortable doing the business from mobile. So we have a complete mobile app which they have, and the entire everything can be done. Onboarding of customers can be done completely from the mobile app. I did mention that we have an email bot for our SME customers, SME agents, and that again is a different solution because there it's not an individual selling; it's selling to a small and medium enterprise. And typically the sale is a bit more complex because the product is not a simple motor product or health product. It's a fire and burglary or yeah, sometimes even more complex. So there the agent will be sitting across the customer at most of the times. Here in this situation, they'll be calling the customer, and it's a bit of a complex form to fill. So instead of having a web app or a web screen or a app to fill, the easiest thing for the person to do is fill in the email. So what we have done is just he fills the details required for the quote on the email and sends it to a particular email ID. There's a bot which picks up the mail, understands what policy is required, goes to the relevant system, picks out the quote and sends it across on the mail. This all happens in 5 minutes. So the agent is again, as he's sitting across, he gets a mail saying that, okay, this is the quote. He can then discuss it with the customer. And if the customer is okay, then all he needs to do is put the check number and just send the email back. A policy is issued within minutes and sent back. So all this happens completely on email. It's the most simple interface, as you might say, for doing a complex piece of this like a SME policy. So there are multiple ways of addressing the same need. And that is basically the customers need to get a policy issue that we have been able to fulfill through our various tools that we have provided them.
Okay, because we're also about future focus. The world is about data. There's a lot of data that obviously as an insurer you generate. Is there a role of AI and machine learning at this point of time for general insurance, non-life insurance?
Oh, definitely. I mean, as someone said, insurance is the original data industry, right? It was the industry which started working on data, the whole actuarial tables and everything.
Actuarial science.
Yeah, it
Yes.
came from the insurance industry, but frankly, I mean, for all the data that insurance actuaries use, the insurance industry has been a late entrant into the AI ML field. So we have had a few initial over last say a year and a half. We have been working on AI ML, and we have a couple of things which are already in production, which use the AI tools we have developed in house. One is the break-in inspection using AI. So when in a motor policy, your motor policy lapses, you have not renewed it in time. So if you go for reissuance of policy, typically someone will tell you that we have to come and see your vehicle so that in the interim
Yes.
3 or 4 days you have not gone and had an accident which you want, which you don't want to have. So there, instead of someone coming and visiting you, which can take up to maybe 48 to 72 hours after you intimate the company, what we have done is given you a Instaspect tool which is on your mobile. You can you all you need to do is take photographs of the vehicle. There is a kind of skeleton given which angles you have to take the photograph. And once you take the photographs, you upload the photographs. It takes about 10 minutes to take the photographs from all
Okay.
angles. Then you upload the photograph, and within about couple of minutes, you get, if there is no dent on your vehicle, you will get an approval saying that okay, you can pay like whatever the policy amount, and your policy is issued. So it doesn't need a further inspection for your. There's a AI which is figuring out whether there's any dent or there's any scratch on your vehicle. If there's small scratch, it's kind of it ignores that. If the flip side is if there is a dent, while the AI can reject it right now, but we don't kind of allow the AI to reject it. We just send it to a manual who
Okay.
can
Yeah.
a person who can inspect the photograph and say yes, there is a dent which we don't want to. Either you repair the dent or you exclude the dent from your policy.
Right.
That discuss. So we don't. See again with AI, you need to realize one thing. I mean, right now in the early stages, you want to use it to benefit the customer. Say, okay, I'll speed up the customer, but if there is some negative decision that AI has to take, you'd rather let a human take it
Yes.
with because we are still more comfortable with human judgment.
So
Uh,
it's a blended model that you follow there. It's a
yeah,
blended
in the sense
human
that
and
the
AI.
rejects have to be rejected by a human.
Okay. Interesting.
Acceptance can be done by AI. The rejection has to be done by a human. So even in case of medical cashless for corporate business, for the corporate health policies, we for the cashless claims. Again, we have AI looking at the so when you go to the hospital, the doctor kind of fills out your diagnosis. They say you have XYZ this, and then this is the time you need to stay in the hospital. This is the room, blah blah blah, and you take that along with your policy. You go to TPA desk and you fill out your forms and give it there. Typically, it'll take about 2 to 4 hours if you're lucky, and sometimes it can take quite long to get that approval first, right? There again, we are using AI, and here the AI is kind of reading what a doctor has written. Of course, it's typed out, it's not written. Otherwise, the AI won't ever be able to figure out what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and but it's typed out unstructured, right? The doctor is using its own their own language abbreviations, everything which is which a typic. It's not nothing codified. In the US, if you go, there is a proper ICD-10 codification for every kind of this. So so when a particular code is given, you know exactly what is the treatment process to be followed. So here it's just 5 or 6 sentences of
My-
what it is, and you have to make sense of. So the AI is actually reading that and trying to figure out whether it fits into policy terms and conditions. So
No,
and
it's Girish. Is this the new normal? Is this a new normal that Indians have to get used to? There is going to be AI going forward, and this pandemic has only sped up our usage of these technologies. Do you see even your channel partners use it, and even the entire chain of hospitals? Maybe. What is your opinion?
yeah, I would say that this would be the new normal. There would be more and more AI, robotics, and stuff coming in. For example, I have been reading articles on how the entire BPO industry is coming to terms with having this whole work from home thrust upon them. And a lot of it has to do with automation and bots which come to their help in trying to get uh, doing the simple tasks which humans can do, automate them further. And a lot of that because of the improvements in natural language processing which are there today can be accomplished by bots.
Interesting answer. And but this behavioral change in teams, do you see yourself asking them to reskill themselves, or is this bot, as you said, it's going to assist a channel, assist an agent, right? So it'll be more intuitive learning rather than reskilling.
Let me put it this way. At least in our business, and I would say this will largely hold true for a economy like India,
Yes.
as compared to, say, a Western developed economy. We are still growing, and I mean, forget the temporary setback that this pandemic is, but in general we are growing. We are still developing this, and when your business is growing, helps you to do is manage, for example, the stuff that I spoke of, right?
Mhm.
We actually have doctors on our rolls who are in our claim processing center, who are actually reading the diagnosis written by a doctor and then determining
Mhm.
whether this is so. Now the AI is doing a part of the work the doctor can do for simple cases. AI just today, even today, it does about 45% of the cashless for corporate health
Mhm.
policies in a straight through mode. The remaining 55% still goes to doctors. But over the last year, my claims would have increased, but I would not have had to increase my workforce for handling those claims, because the doctors can now look at the more complex claims, whereas the more simple claims are handled by the AI. So
Absolutely.
it helps you to utilize your workforce much better than, uh, I mean, for a doctor to read a simple maternity claim and spend time on that, no, it's something that it goes straight through. But if there's a comorbidity claim by someone has malaria and typhoid, and then you're trying to figure out what is the claim, that is something which AI will, at least in the current context, may not be able to do, because
Okay.
there's not enough data on such cases that is there for the past to kind of predict the
Mhm.
future, and you would want to put some human intelligence into trying to estimate what that amount is. And so here you kind of please segregate the more complex tasks which human would want to handle, and let AI handle something which is routine and regular in nature.
Okay. How tough was it for you to get this behavior change from channel partners when you went through this process of digital transformation? Was it easy for you? Did you sit them down and say, okay, this is our way forward in the future? We're going to be using AI. We're going to be using a lot of data. It is only going to help you. Do you want to talk about that digital transformation side that you enable them to be part of?
Yeah, so any change has to be thought through. It has You have to kind of do a lot of communication. You have to do a lot of change management,
Mhm.
because it's just not easy throwing a digital solution at someone and saying that okay, use it, because there are going to be a lot of issues that, I mean, if someone doesn't want to use something, you just raise 10 issues and say it doesn't work, right? It's very
Absolutely. Blame the system. Yes.
yeah. So, a lot of that also comes with what are the incentives and incentives can be overt, they can be hidden, because, uh, for example, something like the email bot I talked about. Well,
Mhm.
it didn't really have to do with incentive, because what was the alternative? Why did we go for the email solution? Uh, and I'll just step back a bit to tell you how this whole thing came about. Because 3-4 years back, when we said we have to concentrate on the SME business, and we really don't have any kind of market share worth talking about in the SME business, and we need to address that. Uh, One of the first things the team on the ground came back and said, look, the PSUs have a stranglehold on this business. And the reason they have stranglehold is that this whole market is not in the big cities. It is in the tier two,
Total.
tier three, and so there's a huge branch network that the PSUs have, and there it is, and each development officer is an underwriter themselves. They are kind of taking the distance out there on the spot locally. In our case, everything is centralized, or at least in hubs. So for any decision on underwriting, this information has to come back sent to the center. Some underwriter is going to put that. I mean, he'll have multiple stuff out there, so it might take a day, it might take 2 days, it might take 3 days for the underwriter to revert. And then by that time, the agent on the field has lost the case, because there's always competition out there who if they're able to address the need fast, it would. Now, what happens when you automate it, put it on email, and within 5 minutes the agent is able to get the answer? So you really don't need to
Absolutely.
incentivize him further to get to that decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what about, there's a lot of fraud that happens in insurance, starting from the payment side to identity theft to, to people stealing information. Can AI detect fraud in insurance?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that AI can do in fraud management. We are just at ICICI Lombard, we're barely starting our journey there. We've earlier for fraud detection, we used to have risk-based models where, based on past claim data, we used to kind of have a model which then looked at claims coming and used to flag off claims based on certain triggers, right? Say X hospital, Y disease, this amount of claim could be a possible fraud. Please trigger an investigation. Now, same thing we have now replaced with a AI. And what is the advantage of AI? The model is dynamic, so it's not a static model. In the risk-based model, typically every quarter you take the data out, kind of analyze it, then reset your triggers, and that goes. Here AI is more dynamic because it's running on a constant feedback loop. As the cases come and as the cases get triggered and you get a feedback that this trigger is correct, the AI improves itself. So that we've already put that for triggering in our health claims portfolio. We set off triggers using AI, and over last maybe about 5-6 months now, we've already managed to bring it to same level of efficiency as our current risk-based model trigger model is.
So it's more prescriptive today or predictive, your model?
So it's more predictive. It's kind of trying to predict that this will be a likely fraud. So we anyway have to investigate the fraud in detail. It's just not based on AI prediction that we can do, but it is trying to predict that. It's trying to make our investigation more. See, the way we'll measure success of it is that the more positive investigations I do.
Okay, great. I want you to quickly talk about cybersecurity. Also, the world is moving digital. Digital transformation is real. Everybody is now setting objectives to digital transformation, but we need to understand risk better. There's so many security products out there. Thousands of tools. In fact, running into hundreds of thousands. For you, as a person who understands tech, how tough is it for you to understand this subject and home in on the right approach to cybersecurity?
No, definitely. I mean, cybersecurity is something that we need to pay very, very minute attention to, especially when we are now in a completely different environment from where we are. See, in a kind of office environment, it's a kind of I would say sterile environment. You try and create a sterile environment where people can work from. When suddenly everyone is working from home, you're gone completely outside your sterile environment. You kind of need to manage that whole process. And there are tools out there which we are also using to provide this cybersecurity protection to our environment. And but I think while tools are required and you need to put all that in place, a key thing in cybersecurity is in terms of educating your workforce. I mean, uh, that is the importance of that cannot be understated, because more breaches happen due to some internal employee getting phished, or some social engineering done on an employee and his password getting compromised, than actually some breach in the firewall. Of course, breach in firewalls happen, but it's the more of the attacks have been by
Internet.
compromise, right? So
Yes.
you need to keep educating your employees. You need to keep and especially in cyber, we almost every day we send a different kind of cybersecurity message to employees saying that, look, these are the. And it is true that due to the COVID related information that is out there, a lot of people have registered websites for COVID-19 and similar this, and they're trying to do various kind of phishing attacks. We need to keep educating employees not only on this, but also, so we regularly run anti-phishing campaigns on employees. So basically, anyone who gets phished by that campaign has to go through a e-learning module on how not to get phished. So those more and more you run all these awareness, so you hope that you are better prepared to ward off, because your first line of defense is actually your employees. The more vigilant you are able to resist attacks better.
Okay, my final two questions. Do you see a convergence of your AI and data science teams and actuarial teams, along with your products team, where you can create data-led products that are even more superior post the COVID world?
In a way, yes. I mean, because in some of the products that we have filed in the regulatory sandbox as well, we're trying to test out these ideas in terms of the products on, especially using telematics and motor insurance and stuff. There, where the data science team works along with the product team and actual team to design a product which can be uh, giving the customer insurance on base of how he drives or how much he drives. So those are products which we are testing out in the IRDA sandbox
Nice.
model.
Nice. So I look forward to more of such products. My final question is your employees. All of our employees look for answers. You're a leader. How does a technology officer communicate ideas to the teams out there in ICICI Lombard? What type of policies have you brought in during this pandemic? Any thoughts on them?
Well, first thing we did is update our work from home policy to ensure that people working from home have a good idea of what they need to do, what precautions do they need to take while working from home, because that was an environment completely new for all of them. Plus, providing them tools for collaboration across, because when everyone is stuck at their homes, but you still have to collaborate on various doing presentations together or working on a document together. How do you use tools which are then those tools are made available to employees, and of course video conferencing and stuff like that to keep in touch. So all that has been kind of put together to enable employees to work as seamlessly as possible without physically interacting with each other. Uh, it has based on feedback that we get worked out quite well so far. Even employees who haven't been who in the initial lot did not get laptops have now been enabled to work using telephones and their mobile phone. So to that extent, we tried to reach out to as many employees as possible and have tried to keep them engaged through this whole
Great.
process.
Great answers. You have the toughest job possible, but also a beautiful job because the future is about data and using AI to predict and prescript how humans can live better. Girish, thank you very much for being on the first episode of Future Focus. You're amazing. And I wish to see you on the other side of the lockdowns. Stay safe.
Thank you, Vishal. Stay safe
Thank
too.
you.